Now, India's top court has ruled that a disputed religious site be given to Hindus for the construction of a temple. The piece of land in the state of Uttar Pradesh is claimed by both Hindus and Muslims. Now, in its ruling, the Supreme Court said Muslims should be given 2 hectares of land for a mosque at a different location. India's government will set up a trust to manage the site and oversee the building of the Hindu temple. Now, dispute over just who owns the land has been one of India's most contentious issues. Hindu hardliners destroyed a 16th century mosque there in 1992, sparking riots that killed at least 2,000 people. The court added the right to build a temple on the land will be subject to peace, harmony, law and order. Well, the disputed land is located at Ayodhya in the state of Uttar Pradesh, which Hindus regard as the birthplace of Lord Rama. And Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just addressed the nation. He called the ruling a golden chapter in the history of the Indian judicial system. He also said that people from all religions and communities have accepted the decision wholeheartedly. Now, Mohan Bhagwat is the chief of India's RSS. That's a right-wing organisation which is considered the ideological parent of the ruling BJP. He hopes action on the site will soon begin.
We're confident that the government will soon take the initiative to resolve the dispute in accordance with the decision of the Supreme Court. We should forget past issues and all of us should come together and fulfill our duty to build a grand temple where Lord Ram was born.
Well, a lawyer for a Muslim group in the dispute says they will examine the verdict in very close detail.
We are not satisfied with the judgment. We will go through it fully. Then we will decide what future course of action will be ours. That is, detailed comments cannot be made just now. But we can say that the judgment is, there are several contradictions in the judgment and there are some incorrect findings also. So we will examine them. But naturally it is judgment of Supreme Court, we respect it. There is no question of, and we appeal to the nation to observe restraint and peace.
Well, our correspondent Anshul Vora joins us now live from the capital, New Delhi. Anshul, as we've just been hearing there do appear to be some inherent contradictions in this ruling. And now Modi is saying that everyone has accepted it wholeheartedly. How true is that?
Well, I'm not very certain how true that is, because we've been talking to people and you've just played the soundbite of the lawyer who says that they are not, they accept the verdict, but they see some inherent contradictions there. So, but the Prime Minister, the fact that the Indian Prime Minister is saying that this is a new dawn, that this is a golden chapter, and also, interestingly enough, comparing it to the fall of the Berlin Wall, that sort of an event here. But it's a positive thing that he's saying. I think what he's trying to say is that the Hindus and Muslims will from now on be united and work together for the development of the entire country. But it's hard to see how that's going to play out, because Muslims in the country, especially under the current government, do feel marginalized. They do not feel empowered. They don't think they can stand up and say things that they perhaps could earlier. They've always been a minority and in that sense marginalized, but even more so now. So there's a bit of a grey area as to what exactly is Prime Minister Modi doing here. It's a positive message, but is it true on the ground? Because there are some voices that we're beginning to hear of the members of the Muslim community who are not very happy with it. Some people on the streets we spoke to who said they would have preferred the verdict of the High Court, a lower court than the Supreme Court, which was given in 2010, which even though gave 2/3 of the land, disputed land, to the Hindus and 1/3 to the Muslims, at least it gave them something, but now it sort of pushed them out. That seems to be the feeling, at least among the people we're speaking to.
And Anshul, we saw all that violence and those 2,000 deaths back in 1992. So I imagine very tight security across the country today.
Well, that is correct. Mostly the security arrangements have been put in place in Uttar Pradesh, which is where Ayodhya is, and Ayodhya is a small town which is where the disputed land is. So 12,000 policemen and women were deployed there. They said that they've also held thousands of meetings with local Hindu and Muslim leaders about making sure that there is no violence and, peace prevails. Everyone is really tight-lipped. No one is sort of emerging and saying anything that could provoke anyone. There have been celebrations, but not massive celebrations. There have not been any sort of vocal protests as well. So people are being very careful because everyone understands that the situation can get out of hand. So even if the Muslims perhaps wanted to protest, they're not going to do it because everyone is sort of taking a step back and saying, look, this could get out of hand and we've got to sort of all be really, really cautious. But massive security arrangements have been put in place. The government is not in a mood to take any chances.
Anchal Vora there with that update from New Delhi. Thank you, Anchal. Well, for more on this, we can speak to Sanjay Hegde, who's a lawyer at the Supreme Court of India, and he joins us now on Skype, also from New Delhi. Mr. Hegde, let me start by asking you about this seeming contradiction in what the court's decided. So, by my understanding, the previous attempts to convert the site into a temple, they were ruled as illegal, but now it's determined that the site will become a temple. So what's the legal basis for that?
No, the legal basis is simply this. It says that both sides have proved their case to a certain extent, and therefore decrees for possession should follow. But since the deity is to be given possession of the land and a temple would be coming up there, the Muslim side should not feel in any way alienated, and therefore the court has ordered, using its special powers under Article 142, that an alternative site of an equal if not more magnitude, which is suitable for that purpose, be offered to the Muslims. That both things should happen simultaneously. Basically, the court has tried to do a balancing act without necessarily giving in to claims which would strictly on the basis of pure civil law.
But Mr. Hegde, I understand the court was essentially looking into a claim over land ownership, right? So what then is the basis for the court to decide what should be built on the site, rather than just saying who owns the land?
Well, you're right. And normally there is what's called the law of limitation. On that land, there existed a structure which was a mosque. The installation of idols in the mosque in 1949, the court says was wrong. The court says the demolition of the mosque was illegal. However, when it finally comes to the question of restoration of the site back to the original owners, the court prefers to mold the relief in a different way. And that it does using its special powers under Article 142 of India's Constitution, which permits the Supreme Court to do complete justice in any matter. Let me be slightly more realistic about the court judgment. The court seems to have basically taken into account majority sentiment in India, which would possibly render any order for reconstruction of the mosque at that very site a physical, if not a social impossibility. So it has instead preferred to close the chapter, give allot separate pieces of land, and then hopes that the country moves on.
But some may feel that the chapter isn't closed. So is there now further legal recourse here for Muslim groups if they decide that they don't actually agree with this ruling?
Well, legally speaking, they can file a review petition, but a review petition often goes to the same bench, though the Chief Justice will have retired by the time that a review petition comes up, so there will be one more addition. But a bench of 5 judges is unlikely to review, to substantially change the final decision in a review. There is technically a remedy, but I don't see it going very far in terms of effectiveness.
Sanjay Hegde there, a lawyer at India's Supreme Court. Thank you very much for joining us and your insights on Al Jazeera.